I just want to start with an informational question about how invasive species are getting into our open spaces, and is it something where people are planting these plants in their gardens unknowingly and somehow the birds are taking them into the woods, or how is it happening?
Yeah, for the most part, these species are all escaped from cultivation. So they were planted, within Princeton nearby, and they basically move from planted areas into natural areas. And some of them are, you wonder how the heck, why would you want to? Like Japanese angelica tree has a thorn on every square inch, would be underestimating it. Every square quarter inch has a thorn on it. But they're novel and interesting, and at some point someone said, hey, I want those in my yard, and they've spread in various parts around the state. So the great majority of them were purposely planted at one time or another, and then have subsequently escaped into natural areas.
So do you think that's still happening? I mean, so should part of this be an educational campaign that might help with the efforts instead of eradicating them from the woods? It'd be nicer to have people not plant them in the first place.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, well, one thing maybe the township can consider, I mean, I think Chris is doing a great, with this, what we're just talking about, I'm like super impressed. But if you're asking me for more, I could always come up with more ideas. One thing that the Princeton can do is adopt the do not plant lists for their properties that the New Jersey Strike Team puts out. And that would set an example for residents that, they might want to follow suit. And then that obviously is better. Keeping things from, even being planted so that they then can subsequently spread. If you limit people planting them, even better. And some of these things are tough. Chinese silvergrass is next to just about every mailbox. Could it be replaced by other things? Absolutely. But there's some things that are very popular and are spreading. And it really is a matter of getting the word out and convincing people that there are alternatives. And I always hope at the very least people don't make things worse. Another thing that, people, I do work with private lands in Hopewell Township, private landowners, and we ask people to sign a pledge that says, for new purchases moving forward, I will not purchase anything on this list. So it's not asking people to rip stuff out of their yard necessarily. It's asking them to not buy things on this list moving forward. So those are things that would be absolutely beneficial to reducing future work in natural areas.
Okay. Ms. Butler?
Yes. Councilman Miller, maybe that's something you could speak to the Shade Tree about, and they could add some of that to their webpage. We talked a little bit about that in relationship to the EAB, replacing that. Maybe that would be a good spot for it. I just want to say I haven't been as enthusiastic about anything else that we've done as I am about this. I feel when we got the report on the ridge, the problem seemed almost insurmountable, I think, of the invasives. And I want to thank Mark DeShield. Actually, this kind of was his idea to try to start to get at this through the use of a contractor, and then also Ben for your help with getting some of these operational details up. We got a little bit of a late start, I think, this year, but we could do a lot better next year now that we know in terms of transportation. And I also want to thank Wendy Mager and Steve Hiltner for your responses to this report today and throughout. I wonder if you could comment a little bit on the ash issue, because it does seem that as those trees are lost, it appears that the invasive species will thrive most in that area, and whether or not we could have a targeted approach to going after those particular woods.
I mean, I know a lot of people are thinking about this. And I don't want to seem like not fighting hard enough, so to speak, but I think there's times like this where you have to consider whether it would be the best use of resources to work in areas with large amounts of ash that are going to go away.
Well, I'm saying that I think you have a slightly different opinion on trying to save these ash trees than
Right.
we've heard, but that's fine.
Okay.
No, what I mean is going after the invasives, because they'll be
Right.
worse in the areas. As the sunlight
Yeah, no doubt.
can get to the invasives, they'll be worse in those areas.
And there are examples from that original plan that I did for you guys that where ash decline, another set of diseases that's already, knocking out, droves of ash trees, and that's what you do get. You get an impenetrable wall of multiflora rose or other invasives underneath it as the sunlight filters down. And I really think that it should be strongly considered whether something should be done or not, even for the invasives in the understory, because it is a very difficult challenge. You're kind of, it's all stewardship is a matter of picking battles wisely. With limited resources, what can you do? And in my opinion, based on what I think is going to happen with the ash and the resulting invasive infestations, it might not be the best way to use resources to go after those areas. First of all, those areas are often post-agricultural forests, so the ground soil has been completely altered. Ash trees are very common on those very highly disturbed soils, so you're already leaning towards favoring invasive species anyway. Then the ash is dying above or will die above. You have these altered soils below, and expecting a big, putting a battle into invasives in that situation is, you could use a lot of resources and not get nearly as much result as, say, working in higher quality areas of forest in Princeton, like portions of Witherspoon Woods and Herrontown and Autumn Hill and things like that, and keeping them more clean, so to speak, and less invasives in them. With unlimited resources, we'd go after every single problem, but that particular problem that's being, we see how it's going to go already, and it's going to get much worse. It's hard for me to say that is the best use of resources.
So those areas, you just give over to the invasives?
Trust me, I hate giving up more than anything, or having even but I think that would be really a lot of resources for a lot less result than doing stewardship in other portions of Princeton.
Also, did you get before and after photographs of the progress you may have made? I just wonder whether, this is something that we might want to share with other municipalities,
Sure.
that what we're doing, and be helpful.
I have to say I was probably a little light on photo documentation as far as that goes. That's something that could be done moving forward, but I don't think I really
Next season.
I can go through. I know I took pictures during my evaluation. I could probably look to see if I caught some of these things and could take pictures, subsequently. I could look through my folder, but I didn't specifically say, okay, I'm going to do it before and after here. So, I don't really have that.
Well, thank you. It was a great report, and it looks like you did a great job.
Thank you. Yep, Mr. Simon?
So is the follow-up all a stewardship team with interns and then possibly external vendors, or is there room for sort of a volunteer effort to help with the follow-up as well? I'm not sure if that's for you or Ben or Mark, but just in terms
Based on our plan, it would be interns, because they do need a focused group of individuals to actually do this work. And from what I understand, there's training involved. There's both for the chemicals and also for just identifying the species.
Right. Yeah, a lot of the work is related to herbicide application. The searching part of things, anyone that can volunteer that knows how to identify some or all of these plants, and they could map them out and walk around wherever and map them out. There's no rules or laws about having volunteers apply herbicides, but in particular, I don't like the idea unless they're very well-known regular volunteers, which there are people like that in Princeton, but I think you'd want to be very limited in allowing volunteers to use herbicide.
Any other comments?
Mike, if you
Question?
can send me your list of recommended do not plant
Sure.
invasive species, I'll see that our Shade Tree Commission puts that on its website.
Absolutely.
Ms. Carmelo, did you have a comment?
Well, I just wanted to say they do have a list of recommended trees, and so I'm wondering how we can get other things besides trees. I mean, how we can get the message out, because I think that is a really good idea. We don't have any nurseries in Princeton, but I wonder if the nurseries around if they could be persuaded to do that too, to not.
Well, maybe we want to pass a resolution, council wants to pass a resolution, and we can send it to all of the garden stores within
Yeah.
a certain distance.
Yeah.
I think we can probably come up with a list of where people are most likely to shop.
And our landscapers that we have registered.
And, yeah, I also liked Councilwoman Butler's question about the photos, because as a gardener myself, seeing helps me identify. I'm looking at the do not plant list from the invasive species strike team, and there's a bunch of names there, and I don't know, there's a few of them I recognize, but most of them I don't. And if I had pictures, I might be able to say, hey, this actually has been growing in my garden. I recognize that.
Yeah, I mean, the simplest thing would be if the list had like a live link on it. It doesn't, but that would be a way to get around that. And I hear you. I mean, a lot of these plants are fairly obscure, but there's plants on there that most people who garden would notice right away. Butterfly bush, for example, Chinese silvergrass, many people would recognize. There are a number of calorie pear. I mean, most of these species are found in most people's yards. So it's not like, some indictment on anyone in particular. But you're right, though, links would be better. What links would be, more useful on that list?
There is I'm just looking right now, and there's a good list for New Jersey invasive species on Wikipedia.
Oh, yeah?
Links.
Well,
I mean, I don't know if it's a good list, actually.
Oh, I don't know.
But it looks good.
Right. The only thing I could say about the strike team list, because I'm their science director, it's a conservative list. So it's species that we know are widespread, indisputable. There's emerging invasive species. There's what we call watch list species. So we don't know yet on some of them, but we have reason to believe they might be. So all in all, it's a very conservative list, which is what you kind of want to do if you want to prevent future damage. And when people look at that list, I say, oh my goodness, I can't buy anything. It's two sides of a piece of paper completely filled with names. But, boy, that only leaves you, several thousand other species you could pick from. Really depends on what your point of view is or how you're looking at it. I mean, I think outreach to all of the nurseries and landscape folks is great. I don't want to bore you to tears about past efforts about, in New Jersey to sort of, create rules or, ban species lists and stuff like that haven't worked out. In the interim, it is a good idea to do as much outreach as possible. And have people show up with this list, and say, oh, I'm not going to buy that one because it's on this list. And, it's a form of outreach to the industry.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, I know that